Hello and welcome back to the What the Falk Sunderland preview show. The World Cup is over, or might as well be if you're English, and Sunderland failed to replicate their excellent second half performance against Millwall as they lost 2-1 to West Brom on Monday night, which ensured that freezing cold weather is just a little bit harder, a little bit bitier this week, shall we say. But nonetheless, we do face a trip to sunny Hull, hopefully, this coming Saturday, as we make our first visit to the, I believe, rebranded MKM Stadium since the COVID era. And to catch us up on the past couple of years, we have the excellent Ant from the award-winning Hull City podcast to Hull and back. How are you doing, mate? You all right?
I am okay. It's very cold, but I'm good. Thank you.
I was going to say, first question I've got here is, how cold is it in Hull? Because it's -8 here.
I'm actually in Leeds, and I think we're one of the very few places that hasn't seen snow yet. So I'm expecting that in the next week or so.
Yeah, I mean, understandably, it's cold in Scotland, but I believe Sunderland is also -8. So you've got it coming, mate, and it's not nice. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, I'm expecting it.
Let's not get ourselves depressed before Christmas. We'll start from the top. Obviously, you returned to action following the World Cup break. We've been back a couple of weeks. You've been back 1 week with a lovely 0-0, which I'm sure is what everyone wanted, but it was at Watford. So, how was the result? How was the performance and how did you get on?
You won't obviously watch a lot of us this season, but I think you might well be aware that we have the worst defence in the country. We concede a lot of goals. I think it's something like on average 2 goals a game, which is not sustainable. If that's the pattern throughout the season, you'll get relegated. Obviously, unless you're scoring at least 2 or 3 every game as well. But obviously, we wasn't doing that either. So when Rosinia came in, the most important thing to sort out was the defence. He's come in and he's promised, we're going to play a more attractive style of football. We're going to try and be, short passing, play out from the back, very risky. But he's all about the risk and reward kind of approach. And since he's come in, we have looked a lot more structured, a lot more organised. There's an identity to the team now. Under Avaladze, we were a bit chaotic. You couldn't really say that the players understood their roles or what they were meant to be doing. But under Rosinia, we look very organised. His first game, sums it up. We drew 0-0 at Millwall away, and we had 10 men for the best part of an hour. So he's showing that we can now keep clean sheets, that we can defend in tough circumstances. And Watford obviously are on paper probably got the best squad in the league. They should be chasing automatic promotion, and we were, I would say, pretty much even throughout the entire game. So to say that we're down in 20th place and we were mixing it up with a team littered with Premier League talent is only a good sign. So and Rosinia was saying that the lads were quite disappointed they didn't win. So that's speaks volumes about the character in the squad at the minute.
Yeah, and I think looking at the stats, which is pretty much all you can go on, or I was going to say Quest highlights. It's not Quest anymore. People get what I mean. It looked really, really even. I think they had 3 shots or 2 shots more. I think shots on target were more or less the same. Possession all looked the same. And I know Watford haven't had the season they would probably want, but they're a bloody good side. Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I know a lot of clubs went away and did a mini pre-season in the World Cup kind of weeks that we were away, but I noticed you probably played more games than most. Obviously, we'll get into it a bit later on, but you're owned by a Turkish consortium now, I think. Obviously, you went to Turkey for a couple of games, got a load of 1-1 draws essentially, but did that help in ensuring that the players weren't too rusty coming back?
Yeah, I think it was perfect timing really for us. This as controversial as World Cup was, for us this season, it did us the world of good, because it's tough enough coming in as a manager in the middle of a season when you can't really put your total stamp on a team and get your identity across, because the Championship Saturday Tuesday every week. You've got no time, have you? But this came at the perfect time for us. We've got a couple of good results under Rosinia, and then he got a month essentially to work with the team on the mistakes that we had defending set pieces. Trying to learn his new style, letting him learn about the players of the squad, who can play where, what to expect, get his tactics across. So we played 2 really good Turkish teams, to be fair, for friendlies. We played Trabzonspor and Istanbul Basaksehir, is that how you pronounce it? We played them 2, drew 1-1, played very well in those 2 games. I know they're only friendlies and you can't really look too much into them, but like you say, they're in the middle of the season, so we're both in what would be your peak fitness. So to come away with 2 draws against them was a positive. And it's looking like we're getting some of our crucial players back from injury, which has been a big problem this season, because I think at one point our injury list hit about 14, 15 players. I still don't think we've seen our strongest 11. We've just been cursed with injuries this season. So hopefully by January time, we should be looking more or less full strength. But for Sunderland, it might be a game too early, or a couple of games too early for some. But they look fit, they look ready, they look like they're more organised, they're confident. So I'm going into this game confident. And if you ever listen to any of my podcasts, I'm usually the pessimistic one. So something definitely is happening, because if I'm expecting results, then something must be going well.
Yes, indeed. I don't know what I am at the minute, because apparently I always thought I was pessimistic, but apparently if all my predictions on the podcast came right this season, we'll be third off top. So maybe I'm optimistic or just an idiot. You touched on, obviously, the management change there. There's, I think, a few clubs that have had it, like ourselves. We've had a manager change as well. The difference being yours didn't run off to Stoke, he ran off to the job centre. Shotorova lads I had from about January to September. I think, looking very basically at his record, it might be 1 or 2 results wrong here, but I think it was 1-9, drew 6, lost 15 in his tenure. It doesn't seem the worst record ever, but you've kind of alluded to something wasn't right there. So what were the kind of reasons behind his departure, and how did the whole fans feel when he went?
It's a strange one with Arveladze, really, because obviously Grant McCann was in charge at the time that the takeover went through, and there was a lot of rumours that sometimes it happens. New owners come into a club and get rid of the current manager because they want to go a totally different direction. But McCann was actually pulling out some good results at the time, which was the problem. So obviously we'd just beaten Blackburn, who I think were second at the time, and we beat Bournemouth away, who were top. So we beat the top two in like the space of a week. And, it looked like a really harsh sacking, because then the takeover went through and then McCann was let go. And it was like, well, why are you letting him go when you're getting results out of the bag? But, over the course of his Hull City management career, we'd lose like 10 in a row and then maybe win 2 or 3. So in the grand scale of things, it was probably deserved. But Arveladze came in and did very well with that squad, considering it didn't have much investment. The target last season was to stay up, absolutely, and we did that quite comfortably in the end. And we were promised exciting attacking football. That's what the new owner wants. I think he was famously quoted on Sky saying he'd rather lose 3-2 than draw 0-0. Obviously, drawing 0-0 gets you a point, and losing 3-2 does not. But the point he's trying to make is that he wants an entertainment factor. He wants the fans to be able to come to the stadium and enjoy watching the team. So when he brought Arveladze in, we're thinking, right, so this is the guy that's going to do that. And we didn't see it, but we was reluctant to judge because it wasn't his team. So then summer came around and we thought, right, he's going to get his players in, and we're going to be, at least mid-table, maybe playoff outsiders or something like that this season. And we were worse than last season. We brought in 16, 17 players, massive plethora of attacking talent, international experience. And we were horrific. We started the season well. I think we were joint top of the table after 5 games, and after 2 of our main players, Aliar and Tete, got injured, we just fell off a cliff. Started with the 5-2 loss at West Brom, and we just never recovered. I mean, even in the games at the beginning where we won, we weren't particularly playing well. Do you know what I mean? We took our chances, and we were quite fortunate to get those wins. But we just never looked like we had any cohesion. We didn't look like we had an identity. One game we'd just have like no shots on target whatsoever, and we'd concede 2 or 3, and it was just dismal. It was so bad. And I think, the nail on the coffin for Shota, I think, was the Swansea game when we lost. I think it was 3-0. And we signed new signing Tobias Figueiredo, who won promotion with Forest last season, has been horrible in defence for us this season. We want to play out from the back, and he just cannot do it. I don't know if you've seen the clip or if you watched it. I think it was on Sky, where Figueiredo just kind of gets taken out by our goalkeeper, and then the Swansea player just puts it into an open goal. That pretty much summed up the start to our season, and Shota, unfortunately, the writing was on the wall. We thought that he'd get rid of him before the international break. He didn't, and then he waited until after, and then he waited till the night before the Luton game, the first game back, and then sacked him. So you couldn't give your manager them 2 weeks to get with the team. It was very strange timing. Dawson obviously came in for a bit, and now Rosini's in, and I think now they've gone the right direction. I think he probably underestimated the Championship a bit. Thought he could bring Arveladze in a few the top players from some of the top Turkish sides, and expect that it just sort of all just work, and it just didn't. And I think now he's realised that maybe he's got to get a bit of EFL know-how. Rosinia's been here before. He's a bit of a cult hero here, and so he's brought that familiarity too. He's instantly going to get backed by the fans, so it's probably the right decision. And we are excited to be under him. Rosinia's very well thought of in the game. He's a very intelligent bloke, and when I listen to him and his press conferences, I mean, like I'd go to war for him. I love, usually you listen to the same dross in manager interviews. Listening to Rosinia, he's just so, you can tell he knows 100% what he's on about, and he's so concise and clear. And yeah, it's a very exciting period. I'm hoping that he gets his first home win at Sunderland. And obviously, it's the 20th anniversary of the year MKM Stadium opening too. So hopefully, all the omens are there for us. I don't know if you guys were aware, but it seems to all be falling in place. It seems written in the stars for a nice, comfortable win, hopefully.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but did we open the stadium?
You did. It was a 1-0 win for us in a friendly, was it? I think it was a friendly.
Yeah, I think so. Because I kind of half remember David Bellion playing, and I don't know why I remember that. But weirdly, my memories just worked incredibly well. But yeah, I do remember us opening that literally, 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's very weird how it's coincidentally ended up being Sunderland that were here for the 20th anniversary game when it was Sunderland that opened the stadium. It seems a bit. That's what I mean. It seems the stars are aligning for a good spectacle, hopefully.
Hopefully for us, not for you. It's funny. I listened to almost everything you said there, but once you mentioned Grant McCann, I kind of remembered how much he looks like Todd from Breaking Bad, and kind of switched off for about a minute. Because if anyone hasn't seen Breaking Bad, he basically is the same bloke. But you touched on transfers there. I looked through your squad, and I mean, I'm normally quite decent for known players, and a lot of players that were in there I did not recognise for Hull, but I noticed a lot went out as well. But probably not much point in speaking about it, but I'm going to speak about it, so I don't know why I said that. But we spoke to a Millwall fan 2 weeks ago about George Honeyman and what they brought, but I think George Honeyman was very Marmite at Sunderland. He definitely didn't feel like that at Hull. He felt like he was really loved, and obviously, I think there's what sounded like a contract dispute sort of rumbling on during the summer. Were Hull fans disappointed to lose George?
It was a surprise because it seemed to come out of nowhere. Honeyman had been easily our best player for 2 years. The League One season, he was outstanding. And the first season back in the Championship, we didn't really start getting positive results until he was back in the side, because he missed the first, I think it was a couple of months with an injury he got towards the end of the season. And he was our main and, well, probably only creative spark in the side. And the guy could probably run a London marathon every day and still go home and be able to do, jump on treadmill. He was an absolute dynamo. And he was loved by the fans. He was brilliant player. First season, I think they played him out of position a bit. We didn't, he looked out of his depth, but then that League One season did him the world of good. But obviously with the new ownership and that, there were a few murmurs that a couple of the players were obviously, aware of the club, the direction the club was going to go in, and a bit of an upheaval in the terms of the squad and whatnot. And Honeyman was rumored to be one of those who wasn't a big fan of sticking around. Whether or not that's true, obviously that's all speculation. But then it comes around to obviously the contract talks and everything like that, and with him being a bit hesitant to sign and stay on, I personally think it was just because he was a guaranteed starter every week, and I think he knew that he wasn't going to be this season, so probably took his chances at being a first starter at somewhere else, which as a football player, it's a short career. If you're going to be guaranteed first team football somewhere else, you're going to do it, aren't you? So I can't sort of blame him. I do think that we would be in a far better situation this season had he stayed, because we have missed that. We've got a very large George Honeyman shaped hole in midfield this season, and he seems to be having a bit of an inconsistent start at Millwall. I don't know if I know he started well. I don't know how he's doing at the minute, but we do miss him. But there's nobody really holds it against him. Wish him well for the future, really.
Yeah, same here. I think he was one of those players that got better the longer his hair grew. So we've got like something.
Yeah.
You touched on Rosinia. I think from the outside looking in, I'm not going to lie, I was a bit like, like a coach that's never really managed before outside of a couple of games at Derby. Yes, he's well looked at and yada, 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 and so on and so forth. And then I thought, well, he's played for Hull. He's obviously got some kind of connection with them. You touched on it a little bit, but looking at obviously the whole podcast and the whole fans that I follow, they were really positive about it. Has that got anything to do with his playing career at all? Is he kind of just a well-liked bloke alongside all the things he said before?
I think it's a mixture of all of it, really. Obviously, being a popular player here and being a successful player here will have a large part to do with how the fans take to any sort of appointment in that sense. But in the grander scheme of things, Rosini is largely credited for a lot of what good Derby did last season alongside Rooney. Considering the circumstances they found themselves in, that they did very well considering. And Rooney's said a lot of good things about Rosini, saying that a lot of it was him behind the scenes, taking his advice and his coaching skills on board too. And he's very good with the young players as well. Derby had a lot of youngsters in that side, and a lot of them have done very well. A couple of them got good moves to Premier League clubs and stuff. And then you listen to, pundits, coaches from other teams. Nobody says a bad word about him. And that only means one thing. That means that the guy is good. He's if he's a well-liked character and he's well-respected, it means that, especially so early, like you say, this is his first, obviously Derby's his first permanent job, but he sort of inherited it because Rooney left, whereas this is his first appointment. It seems the perfect setting for him to do it because, like you say, he's not being chucked in the deep end in League Two or, the National League and having to work his way up. He's in a familiar environment with, probably some staff that he still remembers and whatnot, and an area he recognises, fans that still take to him and will probably give him a bit more patience than they would a different manager. So I just think that there's that coupled alongside with the fact that we're going in a bit more of an ambitious new era with the new ownership and that, and who's got grand plans and hopefully success on the horizon in the next few years, that this could be the start of that. It does genuinely feel like this is that moment now. The Shota appointment was a bit, because it was strange. I think this more or less feels like this is it now. This is where it begins. And we're just, it's just happy. The it's been so toxic for so long. We're just all actually genuinely happy for once. And it's a good feeling. Fans are back in the stadium too. We were averaging 9,000 or 8,000 a game at one point under the Alams. And, when it was going horribly wrong and boycotting and protests. And I think already we're at 17,000 average at the minute. So it's crept up. It's doubled, more than doubled. So hopefully those attendances keep climbing throughout the next couple of years and we get back to about 20,000. But like I say, yeah, so Rosini's appointment just seems to be perfect time, perfect place. And if he's going to start a very good career, I'm hoping that he starts it well here.
It certainly seemed, I said before, it was maybe kind of seemed outlandish because of the fact he hadn't had much experience, yada, yada, yada. And I was looking from a very much an outside perspective, but I suppose when you compare it to the Arveladze appointment, it's much more sensible, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the bookies leading up to, after Shota's sacking was, it was very easy journalism just to stick, like the Besiktas manager on, and anybody that were in the Turkish leagues, and even the Turkish national team manager was on there, I think, at one point. And it was very easy to do that. And then you had your obvious candidates like Rob Edwards that had just lost his job at Watford, and Carlos Corberán, who had been sacked from Olympiacos. There was them names floating about, but there was is he going to go for EFL experience? Is he going to go for another foreigner? And in the end, he went with a bit more of the former, but he hasn't really got much EFL management experience either. So in the end, he probably went with neither, and he's gone with the like you say, quite a outside the box appointment, but. Every good young coach has to start somewhere. And I'm hoping that, Rosini's career starts very well, and that's with us and leading us into at least the top half of the championship.
Touched a little bit on the ownership, and I'll be honest, it was obviously in the previous preview shows that I've done with Hull fans, the ownership was always a topic of conversation. The plus point from this is probably the fact that, you said everyone seems happy, and I think we've all sort of been there at points. I remember some ownerships I've been comfortable and confident with, and then it's all gone to absolute crap. Sometimes it's been absolutely fine. It's been all right. But for where you stand right now, I think, they're coming up to, I think, a year since they bought the club. So it's a good amount of time when you can make some roundabout judgments, if not complete judgment. It seems to be going quite well. It seems like they're saying the right sort of things. Is the fan base happy with the guy that's took over and the consortium that's took over?
Yeah, absolutely. Acun is a guy who has been described as the Turkish Simon Cowell. He's a bit of a showman. He likes to do stuff. He's very generous. He's very social media active. He's one of these owners who likes to be very giving in terms of his personality. The thing is with Acun is sometimes you listen to owners when they're taking over clubs that have got these huge dreams and saying that they're going to do this and that, and you listen to them and you're thinking, I just don't hear you being sincere. I can't sense that truth in your voice. From the moment he's been interviewed in regards to this club and the way he describes the city and how he loves the people and the place itself, and it just seemed like he meant it. So the moment he came in and then he actually started backing up his claims, I don't know if you saw, but during the World Cup break, he paid for 300 City fans to go on a 5-star holiday, all expenses paid, to Turkey.
I did see this.
So obviously, I don't think that's ever been done in football. You can tell me if I'm wrong. I can't remember it off the top of my head if it has been done, but that is just ludicrous.
I think I'd be a Hull fan for that, for like a weekend.
Yeah.
I support Hull. Yeah, I support Hull.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice 5-star trip to Antalya. You got full access to. They did like Q&A sessions in the hotel with himself and Rosinia, and some people were on the same plane as the team, so you were kind of mingling with the players. You got access to the training. You could go watch the friendlies. Like I said, all your drinks and your food were paid for. So it's very, very generous, amazing. Something that unfortunately under the previous regime was an absolute pipe dream. But at the moment he's definitely doing and saying all the right things, like we say. I think he's maybe learning a bit now about maybe toning down the social media side of things a bit. Obviously, when we were trying to hire Avalad's replacement, he was very public with his talks with Pedro Martins and picturing him at the stadium watching the previous game and things like that, basically announcing it but unofficially. And then obviously that fell through, so he had a bit of egg on his face. And then the Rosinia one, there was nothing like from anywhere. It sort of came out the blue. So I think he's learning maybe to not advertise his current candidate so they could get a better offer somewhere else. And but no, I mean, I think a good example I used on the Watford podcast I went on last week, there was a fan that had obviously when the takeover went through, a lot of City fans put Turkish flags in like their Twitter names and things like that to show support, gratitude. And somebody had a Turkey flag in the name and said, put a comment underneath the announcement for the takeover, and he replied to it and he said something like, "I'm going to come visit you." And he did. He genuinely did. Like this guy flies in on his private jet to Humberside Airport, comes to Hull and just nips around to this fan's house and just sits in his garden and has a drink with him and chats about City and what they're going to do. And like the club did a real nice video for it and everything like that. I'll try and send you it. But it's what I mean. Like he's doing things that help the fans feel like they're involved and that they're genuinely appreciated. And I think that's what every fan wants of every club, especially if, decisions are being made. You want the fans to be the forefront of that. If I do this, are the fans going to like it? Is this going to negatively, have repercussions? That's what he's thinking. And maybe he's been a bit rash in the transfer market. He maybe should have spread it out across a couple. But, as fans, we're watching transfer windows. If you're signing 15, 16 players, you're not complaining, are you? Let's be honest.
I remember, not to terrify you here, but I remember being really excited about spending 4 million on Will Grigg.
Yeah, we've all been there. Jimmy Bullard for us.
Oh yeah. Hopefully for your sake, it doesn't go the way ours went, which was not very good. Touching on the atmosphere, obviously is good. You can see, obviously, you're smiling as you're speaking. Obviously, it's an audio podcast, but you've got a big smile on your face as you're discussing that. Where things always go south with everything is results. Rosinia's had a solid start. 1-1, drew 2, lost 1. However, I normally go back like 5 games and I look at the results and stuff like that. And I thought, yeah, pretty solid, not too bad. Then I start looking at your home form. And oh my God.
Very bad at home.
You've lost 7 of your last 8 after winning 3 of your first 4. Our home form is not great, but that's pretty bad.
Yeah, we're shocking at home this season. I have no idea. I don't know if it's. I mean, I think probably from a tactical perspective, I think we're more suited to being the away team. We're very good on the counter. So, I would say we're good at absorbing pressure, but, we've conceded a lot, so we're obviously not. But we're good on the counter. And I think at home, obviously, you're expected to be on the front foot, aren't you? And when teams come here and if they're maybe a bit more reserved and they sit back, I think we lack, at the moment, definitely, that understanding. There's not enough partnerships on the pitch that we've got those sort of telekinetic understanding of where players are to break these teams down. We're very predictable at home, and I think it's easy to frustrate us. We're very bad at defending set pieces. And all away teams come here, score corners or free kicks. And once we go one down, we usually don't recover, is the problem. And I'm thinking that it'll change because with Rosini's appointment now, I think if we went one behind or anything like that, I think the stadium would still be, trying to back the lads and getting behind them. Whereas under Arveladze, we were watching really, really grim football and we were getting battered every week. So as soon as you went 1-0 down, the atmosphere fell flat. So yes, we are very poor at home this season. we're unbeaten in 5 away games, I think it is, but we just can't buy a win at home. I think that the when we get that win, I think it'll change. But yeah, no, it's bad viewing at the minute. It's tough to predict us to win at home at the minute. But new era, new manager. Let's hope it's turned a new page.
Yeah, I mean, looking just to warn Sunderland fans on that, thinking like rubbing our hands together. I don't think we ever do that, to be fair. But those games are mainly in the Arveladze era, which is obviously a different setup, a different team, different tactics. But hopefully, you drop back into the Arveladze form just for one random Saturday. That would be great. Thanks. I think obviously from our perspective, you touched on injuries before. I think it's Dimitrios Pelkas has been one of your sort of better players this season, but he's ruled out for 3 months. If you were to pick out 1 or 2 players that are in good form for Hull at the moment and could cause us problems, who would it be?
I think Oscar Estepinan's back for our game. I believe he is. So obviously he's our top scorer. He's on 8 goals. It sounds better than it is. That I'm going to be a bit controversial here as a City fan. Yes, he scored 8 goals, but I think he's only scored them in 3 or 4 games. So he's not really spread them out. I think he scored a hat trick, and a few braces or something like that. But he tends to score in the same games, but he would be one because I think now that he's had probably about 2 months off now. I think he had a 3-game suspension and obviously the month off that we've just had. So he should be ready and raring to go. Jacob Greaves is our not so secret superstar at the minute. Not obviously in an offensive threat. Well, then again, I say that he's had a few assists. He's a bit like we're deploying him in the Dan Burn left back role this season. Obviously, he's a big guy. He's 6'4", I think. He's usually a ball playing left centre half, but they've been playing him in left back and it's strangely worked. He's very mobile for a big guy. He's very good with the ball at his feet and he's put some cracking crosses in. Finally got his first goal, which City fans, probably about 9,000 every week, had put him on to be first goal scorer just because he'd never scored. And he finally did it a few weeks ago. So hopefully he's back amongst, going to start a goal run. So he's another one. He's a fantastic player. He'll be a Premier League player in 2 or 3 years. And I would also say Regan Slater is one of the most underrated midfielders in this league. And I don't think many people will have known / heard of him. Mr. Consistent every week, at least 7 or 8 out of 10. Tenacity, work rate, application, goal threat, creativity, not happy to track back and do the dirty work. He's got a bit of everything. I don't think teams focus on him because, like I say, they don't expect him to be that kind of player. But he's come to the forefront this season, I think, for us at the minute, and he's definitely my player of the season so far. I'm trying to think. And obviously, Sari, John Michael Sari, I have no idea how we even convinced him to sign for Hull City, but he's there. The maestro in the midfield, he obviously won the league with Fulham last season, almost signed for Barcelona at one point in his career. and now he's pulling strings for Hull City. So he sort of sits deep in front of the back four, and he's just so comfortable on the ball. He second nature to, like, he's very good with the ball in a tight space. He's very good at pulling midfielder to out of position to press him and then getting in behind him with the pass. He can take 2 or 3 players out of the game. So yeah, I'd keep an eye out on those 3: Slater, Sari, and Greaves. Or Estepinian 4, sorry. Yeah.
Wish there was less, but nonetheless. 4 is better than 11, I guess.
True.
On the flip side, obviously, we're hoping Ross Stewart's going to be back on Saturday. I think I speak for a lot of people here when I say I think he's our best player. Obviously, there'll be 1 or 2 people who disagree with it. But he'll probably start on the bench if anyway. From what you've seen of us so far, we've been on Sky quite a bit, which I suppose is a benefit for this podcast, but not for the fans. Which are the players that you've been most impressed by, and where do you feel like we could damage you in particular?
I mean, if you've got height in your team and you've got a good set piece taker, you're already at an advantage because, like I said, we're very poor at defending set pieces. Hopefully that's been worked on the last month or so.
We've had 94 corners this season and scored none.
Oh, right. So that's okay then.
You'll be fine. You'll be absolutely fine.
Well, say that we're a charitable club, so we'll probably give you your first 2 set piece goals. Yeah, set pieces we're very bad at. So if you've got someone with a bit of height on them that can score with a noggin, they'll always be a threat. But I remember watching the game. Was it when you dismantled Reading 3-0 and you had no recognised striker on the pitch? And I remember watching Clark and Roberts that game and just thinking, God, these two, they seem like those luxury players that, maybe don't do much of the defensive work, but have just got moments of magic in them that'll win the game. And I'm thinking about maybe facing up against 1 or 2 of those, even Diallo, if he's playing. It's just, we have the tendency to switch off at the back, and I just feel like these players have the quality to really punish us if we do. Obviously, I'd have said Ross Stewart. I think he's a phenomenal player. I think he's probably one of the best strikers in the league already, and you've only just come up. But like you say, he's expected to be benched. But any of you wingers at the minute, I think, are the danger for us. I think obviously Greaves is a big guy, but if you've got pace that can get in behind him, then he'll probably struggle in that sense. Possibly maybe play Fleming instead just to kind of counter that, but we'll see. But yeah, your wingers definitely. I think Jack Clark. I remember him playing against us for Leeds when he was just breaking through into their team, and I remember watching him and going, "Do you know what? He's bloody good him," and he did one of those probably far too early moves to the Premier League and festered for a little bit, didn't he? But he looks like he's getting back on track. So yeah, I'm going to say Clark, Roberts / Diallo, whoever plays on those wing side, they're going to be crucial if you're going to try and beat us.
Yeah, love them all, apart from Jack on Monday. But if you're listening, Jack, it's just a one-off. Please be better than you were on Monday. You've been great.
Was he played as like a wing back or a left back or something?
I just don't think he played at all. God knows.
One of those games.
Yeah, I think it was like a left wing, but yeah, it didn't work. It didn't work. But to be fair, he's maybe 1 of 2 bad games he's had this season. He's been fine. But my prediction, I almost thought I had my second prediction right for the season on last week's show by saying 1-1 against West Brom. And then
DK.
Yeah. Not what I called him when he scored, I'm not gonna lie. But that didn't happen. So I'll try again to get it right. Probably won't. I'm just gonna chuck a score out there with no thought behind it. 2-0 Sunderland. There we go.
It could happen, I'm not gonna lie. I always predict us to lose usually. We are at home, we're quite poor. But considering we just had our month off, got a nice result at Watford, I'm going to try and keep the positive trend going. I'm going to say I would take a point, to be fair. I would take a point. I'm going to go 1-1. It's 1-1.
1-1 was it? I'd be fine with a 1-1. Yeah, I'd be fine with a 1-1 as well.
Yeah, I don't think we've got 2 clean sheets in a row in us.
I mean, my 2-0 came from nothing. I just thought of a score and said it. And I'm never right, so it's not going to be 2-0. Don't put your money on 2-0. I'll never get it right. But and as I said before, you are an award-winning podcast. Something I will never fucking be. But where can we find you if we want to listen to you?
Don't say that, by the way, because we've only been going since December 2020, and we I'm more surprised than anybody else that we managed to take anything from the Football Content Awards. I mean, we literally asked people to vote for us on the fact that we could, and then when we made the final 8, it was like, that's it. That's the pinnacle for us. Just attending the ceremony was everything. Me and one of the other lads from the pod, we went. My mum and my nana came to support us, so that was nice. We came and sat on a table surrounded by people like Robbie from Arsenal Fans TV. There was Dean Windass there. Fabrizio Romano's up for an award at the same place. And you sat there and you're just thinking, what on earth are we doing here? And so somehow took bronze in the EFL podcast category. So like I say, we never expected to. So just, you might do eventually. We might see you there next year. We'll retweet it for you. We'll vote for you.
I don't even think I take bronze in the Sunderland podcast, mate. So,
but yeah, you can find us. We're on all the usual audio streaming services, your Apple, Spotify, all the other ones, and we're on YouTube. We do opposition previews every week too. We do normal episodes. We've just done we do player interviews too. We've just had former Sunderland player David Myler on tonight. That was a good episode. I enjoyed watching that. So if anybody it doesn't dislike Hull City that much that you'd like to nip over and give us a subscribe, that'd be absolutely beautiful for us. But yeah, like I say, you can find us pretty much on anywhere that you'd expect. We appreciate any support that we get from anybody.
And just to end the podcast, the French have just gone 2-0 up. The bastards. Thank you for listening as always.